The average life expectancy in the UK is 81 years old. That means if you're now 16, you've got just 65 years left on this planet. If you're already 26, that's just 55 years left. What are you going to achieve with your remaining time on Earth? What is your biggest ambition? Is it to become a self-made millionaire? Is it to travel the world? To settle down and start your own family? Or is it simply just to be happy? My ambition was to stand on the highest point on Earth, the summit of Mount Everest, and realize that there was nothing above me but the Earth's atmosphere, and then outer space. I made this ambition a reality, not once, but twice before my 27th birthday. Now, I am not extraordinary. I'm as normal as any of you. I've simply adjusted my mindset to believe that I can achieve something extraordinary. I've unlocked the true extent of my resilience. Now, achievement in any form is not reserved for certain people. Absolutely anyone can achieve. So I was 21 years old when I joined my first expedition to the south side of Mount Everest. But actually, I had a mountain to climb before I could even leave the UK. Mount Everest is an incredibly expensive mountain to climb. An expedition to either the north or the south side can cost anywhere between like 30 and 80,000 pounds. Ridiculous amounts of money. And unfortunately, I was a poor university student with nothing but like thousands of pounds of student debt. Yet I somehow had to raise this huge figure before I could even step foot on that mountain. So I went about looking for sponsorship. I wanted to get a big company on board to give me all of that funding in return for like marketing opportunities, PR opportunities, literally anything I could offer them. And I made this huge, big proposal, and each week I would send it out to like 30 or 40 different companies. And each week I would get maybe 30 or 40 rejections, or I just wouldn't hear back from them at all. And this was definitely the first big test to my resilience. Those rejections hurt a lot. So many times I felt like I should just give up. So many times I felt unworthy of getting a sponsorship deal. But a few friends had told me that funding and sponsorship can often come through, like right at the last minute. So I persevered, sending them all out, and just 4 weeks before I was hoping to leave for Everest, all of my funding finally came through. But can you imagine if I'd like given up the week before, or if I'd given up after I got that first batch of rejections? I would never have even seen this mountain in real life, let alone reach its summit on the 19th of May, 2012. Unlocking your resilience to deal with that kind of rejection is one of the most important things to achieving any ambition. Now, I think it must have been maybe about a year or so after the first Everest expedition that I decided I wanted to go back. But this time, I wanted to climb Everest from the colder, windier, and much more technical northern side of the mountain. Everest still held this kind of huge allure over me, and I really couldn't like shake the feeling that I'd only experienced half of this mountain. So I spent another 3 years sponsorship hunting again, training for 3 years, and then finally, at the beginning of April just last year, so 2017, I headed up to Tibet, to the north side of the mountain. We spent 2 amazing months on this side of the mountain, slowly acclimatizing our bodies to the extreme high altitude you face on Mount Everest. And when the weather looked safe enough, we moved quickly, all the way up from base camp, all the way up to camp number 3. Now, camp number 3 on the north side of Mount Everest is located at 8,300 meters above sea level. Have any of you guys ever heard of the death zone before? Yeah, a few of you? Doesn't sound like a great place, does it? But the death zone is basically a phrase used by climbers to describe the area above 8,000 meters. And if you remember, the summit of Everest is all the way up 8,848 meters above sea level. When we're climbing that last section above 8,000, there's such little oxygen that our bodies are like rapidly deteriorating. They're pretty much dying on themselves every minute we spend up there. It's somewhere we want to spend as little time as we possibly can. But the really tricky thing about the north side of Everest is this camp here, camp number 3. Already being at 8,300 meters above sea level, you're already 300 meters into the death zone. Every minute you spend up there in your little tent, your body is like rapidly deteriorating. Now, we arrived at this tent at 4 p.m. on the 15th of May last year, and we were planning on leaving this tent at 8 p.m. on the 15th of May. So this gave us just like 4 precious hours to melt enough snow and ice for drinking water, to rehydrate ourselves, to cook food and eat as much as we could to fuel ourselves up. And I really had to kind of use these 4 hours to psych myself up for what lay ahead. Stepping out of this tent, out into the death zone, and what promised to be the hardest night of my whole life. By the time I'd reached this tent, I was already physically and mentally exhausted. We had 4 incredibly hard days all the way up from base camp. And that idea of getting out of the tent and pushing through the night was so huge and so scary. Now, the Oxford English Dictionary defines the word resilience as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. But actually, to me, resilience is much more than that. I think resilience is this ability to reach your previously thought limit. And when you arrive, realizing that you can actually smash through that limit and you can keep going and keep climbing higher and higher. Resilience is something we all possess, but I don't believe many of us have yet unlocked the true extent of our resilience. So 8 p.m. came around super quickly. It was pitch black. I don't remember any stars or moon that night, just this kind of thick, all-encompassing darkness. We were dressed in our huge high-altitude suits, high-altitude boots, oxygen masks, goggles, completely encompassed in our own little world. And we began out of camp. Quickly, we gained the northeast ridge. Now, the northeast ridge on Mount Everest leads you all the way to the summit. But along this ridge, you have to climb these huge, steep, technical rock sections. You go down and you traverse along the face, and you're going along tiny little ridge lines with like endless drops down each side, completely terrifying the whole way. And in a way, it was this really kind of like lonely experience. Don't get me wrong, I had like the most amazing team with me, but communication up there is so, so hard. I was just in my own head the whole way, willing my body to keep moving. And that altitude, that lack of oxygen you get close to the top of Everest, is just the most demanding thing. You literally take one step, stop and catch your breath, take one step, stop and catch your breath, and with each of those steps, your body is just screaming at you to stop and rest, to go down and get more oxygen. But somehow, you just have to keep your mind that little bit stronger than your body and keep willing it to move the next step and higher and higher. Now, after about 8 hours of climbing, something incredible happened. And this is something that happens every single day. But most days, we probably miss it because we're in our beds asleep. But when it happens in the mountains, it's the most incredible thing. And that is the first light. When that sunrise that we've been climbing in all night starts to kind of evaporate around you, suddenly you can see the sides of the ridge you're climbing on. You can see the whole of the Himalayas just sprawled out beneath you, literally mountains as far as your eyes can see. And at this point, this is when I finally saw the summit, maybe like another 100 meters or so up above me. And I think this is the point where I knew I'll be returning to the top of the world. We pushed on. And within the hour, I found myself on this final summit ridge. The huge orange sun was just beginning to rise on my left-hand side. There was this kind of like thick blanket of cloud that just covered the whole world, about 1,000 meters down beneath me. And only the highest mountains in the world kind of popped out of the top of it. It was a complete honor to reach the summit of Everest in 2012, but I think an even bigger honor to return to the summit just last year from the north side. That feeling of getting to the top of the world and those views around me were my reward for my resilience. Now, resilient people are not born resilient. They have practiced it, and absolutely anyone can do it. Like anything, the younger we start practicing resilience, the better we become. Your comfort zone, that place that feels safe and easy, is right down here at the bottom of the mountain. People that live their whole lives in their comfort zone are never going to reach the top. They're never going to reach their true potential. You need to step out of your comfort zone. Spend as much time as possible in your unlocking zone, and the more resilient you will become. So, guys, here's my challenge for you. I want you to think back to that ambition. It could be the one at the start, or it could be something completely new. It will be the top of your mountain. It will feel probably completely impossible, and it'll be way out of your comfort zone. Now, there are going to be times, multiple times probably, where you think you can't do it, you think you can't push on. It all feels just too big and too scary. Now, when this happens, I want you to stop. I want you to take a breath, and I want you to unlock your resilience. Trust me, it's there. And the more you can break through that barrier, the easier it becomes. Now, I'm going to let you guys into a little secret. So one of my secrets is that I'm actually pretty scared of heights. I hate heights. I always have had this fear, and I think I probably always will. But by training my resilience, by spending as much time as possible out of my comfort zone and inside of my unlocking zone, my comfort zone has actually increased. I've learned to feel comfortable in situations that I previously thought completely impossible. I've learned to control this fear of heights. And I think this has got me to the top of the world twice. But now, guys, it's up to you. I'm challenging you guys to step out of your comfort zones, to embrace the unknown, to push the boundaries of your comfort zone. And I am super excited to see what all of you guys are going to achieve with the rest of your time on this planet. Okay, thank you.